I was like sinking deeper and deeper into this kind of sense of hopelessness and, really like a deep clinical depression. When we chant this mantra, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, we're like taking a kind of like radical responsibility for our lives. I feel like there's a really deep sense of possibility in this up and coming generation.
From SGI USA, I'm Cassidy Bradford, and this is Buddhability, the weekly series where I talk with Buddhists from all walks of life about the power we each have to change our lives and the world around us. Thank you so much, Bora, for joining today. I'm really looking forward to hearing your story. And like I was saying a little bit earlier, I think your experience, especially like as a young person coming out of college, like really relates to a lot of young people today. And being able to see like where your life is now, I think is really encouraging. So I'm looking forward to hearing it myself and also being able to share it with other people. So yeah, just to get started, you can just introduce yourself. Tell me a little bit about who you are, and then we'll kind of dig in deeper after that.
Sure. So I'm Bora Kolak. I currently practice as a psychiatrist in Brooklyn, New York. Yeah, I don't know where to start. I grew up in Michigan to parents who were from Turkey. Wow. And I had a really wonderful childhood. I was like really kind of young and idealistic, very bright. I was my high school valedictorian, most likely to succeed. I gave my, high school graduation speech, and everyone was like, Bora for president.
Yeah.
And then I went to Harvard, and I was humbled extremely so there, and went on a journey of kind of like self-exploration through my college years. I started a rock band.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I let my hair grow out. I was kind of really, soul searching. Kind of started to become a little bit depressed. It wasn't anything, too terrible at that point. But come senior year, all my friends were like on the path to medical school or law school or investment banking, and I was just really still like seeking or searching for something, and kind of ended up back at home in Michigan on my parents' couch, a little bit lost, and one thing led to another, and I was kind of starting to act out in self-destructive ways. Before I knew it, I had kind of racked up a bunch of like legal charges on my record, some drunk driving charges, and some other stuff, and it's just as time went on, I was like sinking deeper and deeper into this kind of sense of hopelessness and really like a deep clinical depression, and this went on for like many years. Like it was actually almost 15 years later when I encountered this Buddhism.
Wow. I mean, that's such a like, to be kind of dramatic, like seems like this fall from grace, like I had all of this success, or like these external achievements. You get to college, a little soul searching, and then this like dip. I think like for a lot of people, at least like my age, and I think like Gen Z too, there's been so much emphasis on like achievement and like getting whatever grades or being this kind of idea of success, and it can be a lot of like pressure. Did you experience that kind of pressure? And like what was the transition like from like achievement, and then you said you had been kind of humbled when you went to Harvard. I'm curious just a little bit more to hear more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely I felt the weight of expectation like on my shoulders for sure, and I never really rebelled at all. I was always kind of within the lines, and so I think every person goes through that phase where they kind of have to figure things out for themselves. In my case, it was like if I was gonna rebel, I guess I was gonna rebel all the way, and it ended up really just like being a terribly painful time for me, because I was like on probation for like almost 10 years. I lost my driver's license. It was like just living in this kind of like deep sense of like regret, like just that I couldn't shake, to the point of like really I would even describe it as like a kind of self-hatred. And of course, you know, this is like also the age when like Facebook was coming into prominence, and I was really just comparing myself to like so many of my college friends, you know, getting married, you know, leading, you know, on the surface these like, you know, incredible lives. And so I was just like, you know, kind of falling off the map, you know, and so yeah, fast forward, you know, to when I like kind of just walk into that Buddhist center when I'm like 35, and I could barely get out of bed at that point in my life, you know.
Wow. What? Yeah. I mean, tell me more about like how you first heard about Buddhism, and then what led you to the point that you were like, I guess I'm gonna figure out more about this. Let me see if this is something I'm interested in. Like, what was that journey like?
I mean, during that period in college, I was really like already like seeking really deeply in a spiritual way. Like, so I started reading about different kinds of Buddhism.
Okay.
I was
and were you practicing any other kind of like religion? Did you grow up like around spirituality or anything like that?
So my parents from Turkey, which is like predominantly Muslim country, so culturally Muslim, but my dad is a medical doctor, so he considers himself an atheist. And he grew up in a very secular environment in like suburban Detroit. So I didn't really have any tradition or anything, so it was just sort of like grabbing from here and there. But that was like definitely part of that like identity searching, like what is it that like really defines me? Because I also felt like I never really fit in anywhere, and I spent my childhood summers in Turkey. And yeah, so I was never completely Turkish, nor completely American, and no sense of like spiritual identity. So this was like kind of gnawing at me.
Yeah. And so I know you kind of like heard about Buddhism, like this particular form of Buddhism, and then kind of nothing for a while. And then, like you said, there was a point that you just walked into a Buddhist center. So can you tell me that?
Yeah. Well, I guess I should, you know, mention that like during that whole period, like in my 20s, I like went to even like different churches.
Wow.
I, at one point, like even flew to India in search of like a guru.
Oh, wow. You were like serious.
I was going in deep. And I went out to California and did like a year of a master's program in philosophy and religion.
Whoa.
I was like exploring, you know, mystical side of Islam. So all these things I'm trying out, but nothing really like, you know, really deeply registering in my life to the point that I could like change this situation. So yeah, when I walk into the center, I'm like warmly embraced by the members, which is like, you know, really pleasant change. They encouraged me to receive, you know, the Gohonzon, which is the mandala that we chant to. But I actually didn't take to it right away. Like I was one of those people who would just like kind of come and go to meetings, didn't really apply this practice. But I was, you know, still being visited by members. They kept on coming by my place, chanting with me, which was nice. But there were a couple people who visited me and like really saw that my life wasn't really going anywhere. But I was like pretending everything was okay. You know, but they saw through it, and they were like, you know, Bora, you really like got to take some kind of action in your life, right? And I remember like just how much that kind of stung me, you know, and I kind of felt angry when I heard that, but it was actually just what I needed to really take some kind of constructive action in my life. So I actually mustered the courage at that point to you know, fill out an application to just only one school, and
what were you applying for? Like what kind of program?
For medical school.
Okay, is that something that like you always wanted to pursue, or?
Yeah, I would say it was always in the back of my mind. I think my dad is a medical doctor. My mom is a psychologist. I have an older brother, also a medical doctor. My sister's a psychologist. So it was like this family of high achievers. And I was always kind of, you know, kind of seeking the meeting place of science and spirituality as well. Like during that whole period of my 20s, I was like seeking all these like miracles. I was actually tossing these coins, like asking questions to this oracle for years.
Whoa.
Like really like just looking for answers outside of myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in encountering this Buddhism, I was able to at least start to just remember who I really was.
Say more about that.
Yeah.
I love that.
So when I had that interview, I actually started chanting morning and evening. And that was like, because I was encouraged to like chant for what I really wanted to change in my life. So I'm like, let me actually test this practice out at that point. And after, I started chanting, I had the benefit of being accepted to this medical school in the Caribbean. But after a few months, in addition to that wonderful actual proof of being accepted to medical school, I also started to feel like just this sense of joy in my life that I hadn't felt in like so long. Kind of this monkey off my back was being lifted. And kind of attribute that, looking back on it, to this daily practice that we have, where we really honor our lives, we honor the dignity of our own life, and it sort of gets etched into your life as you continue it. So it was just that feeling of being that, that young kid who just has big dreams. But in my case, I wasn't able to hold on to that. I was sort of like, I had that beaten out of me by life, and I became really disillusioned. So to be able to recover that feeling was just such exhilarating in a way, and really, be able to hold on to it, in a consistent way. I think that's been really the greatest benefit. And
wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that almost like gives me chills a little bit, because, I definitely experienced that myself. Like, when I'm feeling like something is off in my life, or just kind of, even though I practice, but, sometimes when I can feel like my practice is not like a big part of my life or a priority, and I can lose this rhythm of my daily practice, I always like, that's why I've been feeling kind of off or not totally myself. And every time I chant, it's like, refreshing that kind of joy in my life, and the ability to like feel hope in a way that is like real, not just like wishful thinking, but like, wow, I can, accomplish whatever this is. And I think, just hearing you, the reason it just strikes me so much is like, I know so many people that really have that kind of like joy or curiosity or passion kind of beaten out of them just by daily life. Like you have a big dream and then you don't get it, or something really challenging happens in your life and it just like really knocks you off. And oftentimes I think without this practice, it can be hard to know, like, how do I want to feel that again, but I don't actually know how to bring it out of my life,
Yes, and definitely.
The fact that like you had that, like, I'm like, I don't know, returning to like who I really am at the core is like, incredible.
Yeah.
What did it feel like? Were you like, whoa, Buddhism is crazy? Like, or just like day to day, just feeling more joy? Like, yeah.
Both of those things, I think, at once. It was still a struggle. Of course, there's all kinds of daily problems that we're always going to encounter, and I was still dealing with the weight of all of those things in my life and how to, overcome those. I had to get into residency. Eventually, I had to get, all of those charges expunged, get my driver's license back. I faced a period where I didn't get into residency and was like hundreds of $1,000s in debt without a career at age 40. So really just like still facing it, but at least at this point I have the tools to really like face it without being like defeated or, without a sense of like despair,
Yeah. Tell me about like the process of getting into residency after you had finished the 4-year like medical program. Was it hard? I know residency, I don't know. Anybody that I know that's in medical school, residency seems like a big, scary thing, but I know nothing about it. So what was that like?
Well, there's a match process. So there's like one day out of the year where like everyone
that's
finds
like
out.
That's like dating app, but like 10 times worse.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Wow.
so high stress. As a foreign medical graduate, you're a little bit like, under the gun with that, less of a chance to get in. So I was facing that plus the legal stuff. So I kind of went into that first year of interviews again with that kind of monkey on my back, and I didn't really present my best self or put my best self forward. And but in that year off, you know, instead of like giving into my usual tendencies to just give up on myself and kind of hide away, like I really decided I wanted to like apply this practice. So I started chanting more. They asked me to like, you know, support in my local organization, you know, to support other members. So I took that on joyfully. And by the time that I like came around to the second set of interviews the next year, I was able to do it with this sense of like, you know, this is really my mission. And I went into those interviews rather than like justifying myself or having to explain away things. I really directed the course of the interviews and talked about my dreams. And I even ended up talking about Buddhism in these interviews.
Wow.
And I was able to actually, you know, get my top choice and come to New York for a residency. So, and in that year, you know, what initially seemed on the surface as this like setback, I was able to spend time with my aging parents in Florida. I met my eventually wife to be.
Wow.
So really it's like this wonderful, you know, actually on the surface, seeming like a setback, but really a benefit.
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of people that like, yeah, they're chanting about something and they don't get the thing. And they're like, oh, well, does this Buddhism work? Like, why is this happening? What would you say based on your own experience and just like Buddhist perspective, you know, when somebody has a goal, but it doesn't happen, you know, what advice would you give them, or how would you like explain that from a Buddhist perspective?
Yeah. So I've heard it said that like when you chant sincerely, one of two things will happen. You'll either get what you want immediately, or you'll get it in a form greater than you could ever imagine. So I'm always thinking about like, actually, you know, or the person I take as a mentor, you know, Daisaku Ikeda, has shared that like when we practice for a long time, we would become like happier than we, you know, would even know what to do with ourselves. You know, like, so I contemplate that a lot, and I started to feel a little bit of that. The more and more I practice, I feel, you know, more and more of that. So I guess, you know, when we really like connect our lives with this kind of bigger cause, you know, for the happiness of others, and really like genuine like harmony and peace in our communities, you know, our lives take on a kind of nobility. So you can really feel like you're moving towards like a grand and noble destination. You know, that's how I would kind of explain it. So not to be sort of like swayed by the you know, things that come and go, but really with a sense of just honor and dignity that we can really live with this kind of deep mission.
Yeah, I love that. I definitely like now at this point can feel like I just have so much more confidence now that like whatever is kind of happening in my life, like, okay, this has meaning somehow, and not like some external thing is like giving it meaning. I'm creating meaning. You know, there's deep purpose to everything happening in my life, even the things that seem on the surface, like the not getting accepted for residency or not matching. Like that at first is like, oh no, like the worst thing ever. But actually through this Buddhism deciding like, no, this has actually such profound meaning for my life. And as long as I continue to move forward, I don't have to worry, you know? And I feel like that is so freeing. Like I'm somebody with like just really intense anxiety and to be able to have now that sense of like, oh, I really don't need to worry. That's not to say that I don't ever have worries, but it doesn't like consume my life anymore. Yeah,
me too, actually. I have the same feeling. Still so many anxieties, but you know, I can really translate that into like concrete action.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Rather than just like, okay, this is just worries that are eating away at me. Like, okay, I'm going to do something about it. You know, okay, I'm going to use this as fuel to be able to like keep going. Yeah, so totally. You got into residency, came to New York. What was the legal situation at the time with residency? Did you still have all of your everything on your record?
I did. Actually, I was as residency was approaching its conclusion and I was thinking about getting licensed, I had to face those kind of demons from my past, and I had tried to get them expunged at one point, and the laws were such that it wasn't possible. So like approaching that time, I was really forced to apply this practice and chant really deeply for some kind of solution, but really determined that I'm going to find a way. This is my chosen path. I know that in my heart of hearts, I'm going to be able to somehow, some way, find a way forward. And actually just a couple months before I was supposed to get licensed, I contacted a lawyer and I found out that literally the laws had changed in in the state where these things had happened, and I was able to get just about everything expunged from my record, which was like, oh my goodness, I mean, on a deep level, I was just kind of awestruck and just filled with a lot of appreciation and just happiness, but also that now I have to repay that debt of gratitude.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. How do you repay that debt of gratitude? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, so I've made many friends in this organization, and I've met many new friends, and I share my experience, of course, and really, we also chant, not just for our own happiness, but for others' happiness too. So really, striving to really chant so people appear in my environment who are really seeking this practice. And actually, when I first started practicing, I read something from Daisaku Ikeda that really helped me along. He said that those who've suffered the most will become the happiest. And so this is really stuck with me, especially when I was really going through it. It really gave me a sense of meaning for what I went through. Because while I was in medical school, simultaneous to studying medicine, I was really diving into everything in this Buddhism that I could to really find answers for myself. Why did I have to go through all of this? Because it wasn't easy on the surface. Everyone else has had these wonderful lives. Why did I have to go through just years and years of hell, right? But in studying and coming to understand, myself better, I was really able to feel actually this was a great benefit that I went through this great adversity, because it allowed me to really grow, understand myself and understand others. And this means I'm going to become even happier, right? Because I went through this. And, in my work now as a psychiatrist, I can also, really empathize more with those who've been through, not to say you have to go through this kind of experience to do this work well, but it's definitely given me sort of connection to others that I would not have had.
Yeah, and I imagine it can give your work greater meaning and sense of fulfillment, knowing being able to really understand the people that you're working with. I just imagine it really deepens the meaning. But I also hold that those words from Daisaku Ikeda very close as well. When I went through the deepest kind of periods of anxiety and then depression, I just kept reminding myself, okay, somehow I have to become the happiest person, because the level of my suffering right now just feels so deep. So wow, if I can get on the opposite end of that happiness, I am going to be the happiest person ever.
Yes.
Have you found you talked about, encouraging others and sharing your experience. Have you met other people that are going through or have gone through similar experiences? And if so, what does that feel like, being able to relay that experience to somebody who's in the middle of it? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I think someone who's really going through it, no amount of talking is really going to help, but it does help me really just kind of be there with that person, just to be, a real friend and listen and, be together with them. And of course, if, we can always relate to other people on some level. So I feel like this whole experience that I've gone through has just allowed me to relate to more and more people, and really just to be able to, open my heart and connect with different people's experiences. In this Buddhism, we talk about like this concept of like turning karma into mission, which is kind of really cool, right? Like that exactly what we've gone through is exactly what we need to encourage others. And there's people that only we can encourage because of exactly what we've gone through.
I think like sometimes I've felt like, oh my gosh, like this person has no idea what I'm going through. And then I meet someone that's like, I feel like, oh my God, they get it. Finally, somebody who really like knows and like has experienced what I'm feeling. Then I like, something about that is like more encouraging than like anything else. Like because it can feel so like lonely and isolating, I think, when you're really suffering with something, especially when it's like really challenging mental health. Being able to connect with someone where you feel like, wow, I feel seen, you know, like they really do understand like the kind of depth of suffering that I'm experiencing right now. And yeah, I guess to your point about like, sometimes no words will say anything. You just have to be present with them. I'm wondering like if you have any advice for someone that's like listening that maybe they themselves are not experiencing depression or anxiety, but they have a friend or a family member who is. From a Buddhist perspective, like what advice would you give them for just like supporting loved ones that are struggling with anxiety or depression?
Yeah, I think, you know, you hit the nail on the head when you said, you know, like sometimes our best attempts to, you know, fix a situation may not be sufficient. I really think sometimes the best thing we can do is just, you know, be together with them, really open our hearts and, you know, show our care in whatever way, you know, we see fit. You know, I don't think there's any kind of cookie cutter way to do this. You know, this is part of why in this practice, we chant so that we can really kind of put our prayers out into the universe, you know, that we really, you know, and that kind of register somewhere in that person's life. But, you know, even if a person doesn't chant, you know, there's so many ways that we can show our care and, you know, find ways of connection, get to know them. And let's use our wisdom is what I would always say, right? So.
Totally. Yeah, because I mean, when we chant, we can bring out wisdom, compassion, and courage. And I think that all three of those, you know, characteristics that are characteristics of Buddhahood allow us to, I'll speak from my own experience, like allow me to really see what is the best way to care for this person in front of me. Because, you know, one thing that may work for my partner might not work for my brother, might not work for my friend. So being able to really, really see the person in front of me and like bring out everything that I need to be able to support them. I hear you. Yeah. I also I have another question, like piece of advice. For somebody listening that is the one that is experiencing, you know, really overwhelming anxiety or depression and feeling like, why am I going through this? Or I've experienced depression since I was 15 and now I'm 25, and is this ever gonna end? What kind of advice would you give them for, like from a Buddhist perspective, what can Buddhism provide them? How can they use Buddhist practice to, tackle, you know, any struggles with mental health? Yeah,
I mean, every person's situation is different, of course.
Totally, yeah.
It's said that, you know, a person's karma is like unfathomable. The depths of a person's karma is unfathomable. I think every person's situation is so unique. I don't think there's one, you know, single answer to that, but you know, we can only you know, share based on our experience, and I can absolutely say, you know, that it's never too late, right? Like you can always you know, change what's, you know, keeping you from becoming happy. There is something in this Buddhism called like this moment forward, you know, like every moment is a like fresh opportunity to really reset. And, you know, if we can just like, you can recover this, you know, sense of hope in our lives. There's actually an essay by Daisaku Ikeda called The Most Important Decision. And it's actually, you can find it in a book called Hope as a Decision, where, he says specifically that, you know, if we can't create hope, then it's, time to create some, you know, so we have to dig deep. And it's something so simple in a way, like this Buddhism in a lot of ways is just like common sense. Yeah. But to really live with common sense day to day is, I think, the most challenging thing, right? So
yes. Yeah. And I mean, that's why we, chant every single day too, right? Like to engrave it as like a habit and rhythm in our lives to bring hope or decide to have hope and bring it out of our lives. Because I love the Hope is a Decision book, because I think sometimes people think that, or there's like a perception of hope as just like naivete and like, just dreaming of things. But actually hope is something that's really courageous. It's like really grounded in like a determination almost, especially in today's society. To like have hope it's a hard thing to do, and to be able to like somehow decide and bring that out of your life is really incredible and like so crucial. Because if we don't have hope, like what's the point, And of course, I think speaking of like depression and anxiety too, it's so hard to have hope. So hard.
Right.
Yeah.
But, to those who are, going through it, I think to remember that, each of us has also a unique mission, like, that only we can fulfill. So like the fact that you're going through it, I really think means, you really have this great mission. This is why, like in my own case, I can at least say, I chose all of that, which is crazy. Why would I ever choose that? Right? But, it was because I wanted to really be able to discover this great potential in my life that would have, if I just coasted the rest of my life, I would have never been able to like bring out this real strength.
Oh, absolutely. I think, I used to feel like, I used to feel just like a very weak person, and so swayed by, especially my anxiety, my worries, my environment, just like no roots, But I think that because like I really used my Buddhist practice, especially like throughout my 20s, every time that like anxiety really like, knocked me out, or, I had a couple of years where I went through a really deep depression. Now, like I always have that sort of, like treasure in my life that like, wow, I was able to like really persevere and overcome those things, that now I feel like, wow, if I can do that, I can do anything,
Totally.
Like even if sometimes my anxiety hits me, I'm not like, oh my God, like the world is ending. It used to feel like when an anxiety attack came, I was like, my life is over and I'm always going to feel this way. Now it comes and I'm like, oh my God, this is the worst, but also like, I'm going to be fine. I know that I have what it takes now to be able to like really move through it. So, I mean, I think some people like they perhaps go through a period of depression or anxiety and that's it. And some people, it's something that they deal with their whole lives. But I think for me personally, my anxiety has really subsided. And when it comes up now, it's like, I can handle it. Do you ever, like, since starting your practice, have you like encountered like episodes of depression again, or anxiety, or was that something that was kind of like this period of your life and now, life is different?
Again, it's kind of both. Life is definitely different, but I'm human, and like I go through
Yeah.
cycles. But there's something in Buddhism called like lessening our karmic retribution, which I
Yes.
really identify with, because I feel like my bounce back is so much more these days. Like I've developed a kind of resilience. So I definitely go through all kinds of moods all the time.
Yeah.
But every morning and evening, I like come back to this practice of just, chanting and like reminding myself of, this is not permanent. Even if I'm having a really terrible day, I can wake up in the morning and just really refresh. And then I chant until I, recover that sense of joy again, so I know I have that in my kind of back pocket.
Yeah.
So that's been huge, right? That's been a game changer. And I know that I have this forever, right? It's like a forever happiness tool.
Yes.
It's like,
Something that you
cool.
can always rely on,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah, I feel like even when hope kind of feels lost, underneath, like in the depths of my life, hope isn't gone, which like I didn't always feel that way. Can you explain more the concept of lessening karmic retribution for anybody that's never heard that before?
Right. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, so, what is karma? First of all,
Yes.
karma is like the, collection of our words, actions, thoughts, that we've accumulated over time. Buddhism is about cause and effect. So like everything we're seeing in this moment is the result of causes that we've done in the past, and the future is the result of causes we're making now. So if we've made negative causes, we're going to see negative effects. But when we're practicing this Buddhism and we're really making this greatest possible cause for, the happiness of ourselves and others, and like restoring the respect for dignity of life. And when we do this, like, of course, we still encounter lots of obstacles, but they appear in a way that's less severe than they would have been. And so that's why we call it lessening the karmic retribution, because we've all done,
Yes.
made negative causes, and it's
Yeah.
like, just part of the human experience, right? And I really feel, even if we have everything great in our lives, right? Like there's so much suffering in our midst. We have our family karma, we have our community karma. There's always something really deep that we need to really go back to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's so many, there's just so many concepts in Buddhism that like just feel like, wow, that's like so hopeful, so encouraging. And, because I think, like you said, we're always like, our lives are always fluctuating. And it's not that because we practice Buddhism, somebody yells at me on the street, doesn't mean I'm not going to be thrown off. And like, I'm somebody that's like the next hour, why did that person yell at me on the train? I don't know. It's, like, of course those things still happen. But the fact that I can always return to my practice and studying something that's like so hopeful and again, like hope that is like just really grounded, it's not this like feel good, it's like hope that feels like so empowering.
Yeah, totally. Right. Like, see, I was like the total idealist, growing up.
Yeah.
And then I became the total cynic, but like Buddhism, this is why we call it the middle way, right? Like we're able to really kind of carry both at the same time, but still fight for our dreams, right? Like still fight for this world that seems beyond reach, but in a way that's like grounded in the actual
the reality.
Yeah.
Oh, that's such a great point. Wow. I'm wondering, when like going back to like, okay, you were searching for all of these different like, life paths and spirituality. When you really started practicing Buddhism, what felt different to you, if anything? And like, what about it resonated in that like you hadn't yet experienced?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was like in search of like truth and beauty all these years. And I remember having this dream that I wanted to like sing the truth, So I just felt this sense of like, actually those things that I always wanted are attainable. So that in itself is sort of like light bulb moment, just like also just my heart just being filled with like sense of possibility. So those like, feelings of deep joy, I'd never really felt before, right? Like, of course, I had that childhood innocence that I recovered, but there was also this like kind of more stable, secure sense of like confidence in my life. I always felt kind of like at the mercy of my environment in a way, right? Even as a kid, I was, you know, I was expected to do certain things, and I always kind of did those things. But now I felt like, okay, I'm really kind of in control of my own destiny. Like I can really guide my life in the direction that I choose, you know? So that feeling is special, right? That's also priceless, you know?
Yeah. And nobody can like give that to you either. Like, okay, you can get encouragement from other people is incredible and important. But nobody can just like put that feeling in me, you know, like I have to really bring that out of my life. And for me, the only way to do that is through chanting. That is the only way that I can actually pull this like confidence in my life out. Otherwise, like, it is hard. Of course, like, you know, sometimes I'm feeling good, whatever, but, and hearing words from other people is encouraging. But like, for example, if, you know, somebody comes over to my place, like a Buddhist friend, and, you know, they encourage me and I can feel really good. But if we don't chant together, then that feeling could easily kind of go away, right? Like they're helping encourage me so that I can start chanting. And then with like whatever they've shared with me in mind, like then I can really chant with this kind of like, oh yeah, this friend reminded me of this Buddhist concept. And then as I chant about it, then it like becomes more concrete, I guess. Yeah. So I have, I think actually just one more question. This question I often ask to guests. What piece of advice would you give to somebody listening that is like kind of curious about Buddhism, hasn't tried chanting yet, or maybe they've tried a little bit? What advice would you give to somebody just kind of starting out? Like, what should they be thinking about? How should they practice? It's kind of open-ended question, but yeah.
As time goes on, my like answer to this question has changed a little bit.
Really?
I really feel like now I'm much more focused on just like, you know, just kind of, you know, take it at your own pace. Like every person has their own, you know, unique situation. So I really am much more focused on just becoming that person's friend and like, you know, helping them to, of course, you know, chanting works. I will, you know, I can 100% vouch for that. And we always say like chant for that thing in your life that you really feel like is impossible to change. But yeah, no need to put pressure, you know, like just really like, let's enjoy this process, test it out, you know, like what do you have to lose, right? Like this Buddhism, we talk about absolute happiness. That is something that I've never encountered in any other philosophy or tradition. The idea itself that there's a life state of eternal happiness. Like what does that even mean? Like before I practiced Buddhism, I would have been like, what are you talking about? You know, but that's what we actually are, you know, practicing to achieve. And it's of course a daily battle, but this is attainable, right? And someone also shared with me recently, like a friend in faith, that like, you know, most people on planet Earth are not completely happy. Like the vast majority of people are not completely happy. I mean, they may say they are or pretend they are, but if you literally look deep in people's lives, you know, most people are really, really suffering and seeking, right? So we have this incredible tool. And what a shame if people, you know, didn't really use it, right? And, one of our teachers in faith, Josei Toda, he said that, you know, if there was like a medicine where people, you know, could get it to become happy, they would be like lining up in line, you know, for miles, right? But we actually have this tool. So like, again, like what a shame if, you know, we don't share it. And allow people to experience the, you know, grand wonder of it all.
Yeah, that's incredible. This was really wonderful. I feel so, I don't know about you, but I feel really refreshed. Like this was really great. And something I really admire about you is like, as we're talking, you're like, and there's this Buddhist concept and this Buddhist concept. I think, wow, okay, I got to study more.
Yeah. You know what? When you go through it, you really got to figure it out for yourself, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think I would be able to speak about it in a natural way unless I really was like forced to do the work, you know? So my life made me do the work, you know, I didn't have a choice.
Yeah. I mean, we talk so much about like study in this Buddhism because it does like provide, as soon as you start like studying more and really seeing it like how it applies to your personal life, there are like so many, it like provides this great framework for understanding, like you were talking about earlier, like what is the meaning behind everything that I'm like going through, and it like provides me like the way to like move forward too, you know. I think without like really deepening my study of Buddhism, I don't know. I mean, of course, I still would have like great victories and happiness in my life, but I think to really like go deep and like transform my life on a really deep level, the more and more I study, I feel like the deeper and deeper I'm able to go, you know, and then like the happiness that I have is like stronger and stronger, you know. It's
unending, right? Like this process of like inner transformation is eternal, right? Like, and every day we have to face our lesser self, our tendencies. But it's exciting, you know, now for me at least, that I have this ability to really just, you know, fight, right? Like sometimes people think of this Buddhism as kind of passive or pacifistic, but really it's a fighting spirit that we're cultivating, right?
Totally. Very like action oriented. Like, how can I really move forward? And when you mentioned happiness, I remembered, oh yes, that's what I wanted to ask. You mentioned absolute happiness. Can you describe what like the Buddhist perspective on happiness is, like absolute and relative, for people that have never heard it before?
Yeah. So, well, relative happiness, just like, you know, the concept kind of says, is like, it can come and go, right? Like it's relative to other things. You get the thing you want, whether it be a relationship, money, you know, new car, whatever it is, usually material things, but could be other things as well, even spiritual things, but they come and go. Or absolute happiness is this deep sense of fulfillment from life. And for many years, I was actually seeking like, what is enlightenment, right? Like when I was like looking at these other traditions, and it was always sort of shrouded in kind of secrecy. But in this Buddhism, like when we talk about Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, which is the mantra that we chant, it actually has a meaning of like this life condition of absolute happiness, or of never being defeated. And it was very clear to me, like, oh, okay, so that's what that meant all along, right? It was so simple. Why didn't anyone ever explain this to me, you know?
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Yeah, because I do find sometimes like, it can seem like, oh, this elusive idea. But in Buddhism, like, even theory is so just like, clear, you know, like this is what it is. This is how you bring it out of your life. This is what you're, you know, really striving for. This is what Buddhahood is. This is what happiness is. Which is for me somebody that like I don't do well with like abstract theory. So for me, like having it so clear, it makes it like just so tangible and real for me. You know, it's like a practice that's so grounded in just like my daily life. And I often find that people, when you talk about happiness, they kind of, you know, give you kind of a glance askew a little bit, because they're like, you know, like, who is really happy? And like, they think about happiness in that sense of relative happiness, right? So again, just talking about it isn't enough. We really have to, I find at least, like, have to somehow like reveal that in our lives, so that our lives are really shining with that kind of sense of joy. And then I think people, you know, very naturally like want to know what we're doing. So that's really what I'm determined to do more of, is really just to kind of, like kind of uncover all these layers of the onion that are still like ready to peel in my life. You know? So, wow.
You know, another thing that crossed my mind is that, because I was always seeking about like the connection between this Buddhism and like the work I do, and I came across this quote from Daisaku Ikeda that this Buddhism is the greatest therapy, neuroscience, psychology. I was really like reflecting on that, you know. Of course, you know, we always say also that Buddhism is common sense, that we should really, you know, take whatever means that we need, you know, to improve ourselves, improve our health, you know, if that be therapy, medication. But I feel like this Buddhism is really, at least for me, like kind of a foundation that I can really apply both in my work and all aspects of my life, right? Like whether I was a psychiatrist or not, I feel like I would be utilizing the principles in the same way, right? To really encourage others to encounter this greatness in their lives.
Wow. Yeah, you know, I talked to kind of a lot of young people that say like, yeah, you know, therapy has been really great, and Buddhism has been like the means to really actualize kind of what I'm learning about myself in therapy. Like Buddhism is a way that I can really like transform it in like a much faster, concrete way. And for myself, that's like definitely been the case. And I'm curious, like just to hear a little bit more about like, how you see Buddhism as like really present in the work that you do. Like, what does that mean? What does that look like?
So many different ways to approach that question. But one thing that did cross my mind, the mandala that we chant to is called the Gohonzon, and another name for it is object of devotion for observing the mind. So when we're chanting, it's like we're observing what's happening in our lives, including the thoughts and the words, right? So we're really able to kind of write the scenario of our own destiny. And like a lot of therapy work is about doing exactly that. So it's sort of like we're doing this work of therapy as we're meditating or chanting, you know, writing this life story. And there's narrative therapy, there's cognitive behavioral therapy. All these different therapies involve like, you know, changing the framework of our minds. And this Buddhism sort of is like a special key, I find, and for me, myself at least, to unlock that.
Yeah, well, and there's like this great, like I think essay or maybe speech by Daisaku Ikeda that's about like becoming the protagonist of your life. And when you talk about, like we're like writing this script of our life, we're rewriting, we're changing, like, okay, what kind of life do I want to live, and seeing that clearly and moving toward that. So it just made me think of that idea of being the protagonist of your life. But
regarding my work, though, just to finish the thought, because you had asked me, in my daily, you know, practice as a psychiatrist, like obviously you can't really talk about Buddhism, but we talk about Buddhism without talking about Buddhism, right? Like Daisaku Ikeda, who I take as a mentor in life, you know, he had all these dialogues with people from around the world, including artists, scientists, politicians, also just people from everyday walks of life. And he always like studied beforehand, like about their lives, and he you know, was always determined to like find a way to connect with them. And, you know, of course he would engage in these dialogues without bringing up big Buddhist concepts. So I try to apply that also in my work. One example that I always think about is that we, you know, when we chant this mantra Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, we're like taking a kind of like radical responsibility for our lives. And you can, you know, in my studies about psychology, you know, predating my practice of this Buddhism, I always heard about like, you know, people that have this internal locus of control, like which just means like they feel a sense of ownership or, you know, total, like you said, sense of being a protagonist in their life, are generally more happy. So I try to like sort of convey that in like subtle ways, that, you know, really you have this great potential in your life, and you can, you know, you can absolutely awaken to it. You can, you know, change whatever you've been through, no matter how difficult, into something of value.
And I imagine too, like the ability to not just convey that, but to also really believe that. about the person that you're working with too. Like I find that Buddhism, because we believe that every person, you know, regardless of who you are or gender or whatever, that you have this Buddha nature and your life is like, has this innate value and worth. Because we believe that, you know, sometimes there's people in my environment that like, sometimes I don't know, right?
That's
like
so true.
Right? So I really like continuously have to challenge myself to be able to really believe in the capacity of other people. And you know, that perhaps is just my own kind of tendency.
No, thanks for the reality check. So that's so true. Like, because, you know, we're only human. And I encounter people going through it in life, you know, all kinds of things, not just depression, anxiety, but all kinds of, intense struggles, psychological struggles. And I really have to chant about, you know, those people in my life, including patients or clients, and my coworkers, and whoever's there is there to help me along to do my own human revolution. And they're there for a reason, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Now, like, you've accomplished all of these kind of dreams and ambitions, and what are your dreams now?
I mean, it's something Daisaku Ikeda says, that when you climb a mountain, you know, and you reach the summit, then, you know, you get to work on climbing the next mountain. So, I have so many dreams. One thing right now, of course, I have a 20-month-old baby. This is, this is another whole experience that maybe is another podcast. But, we chanted a lot for that baby. My wife and I went through many, challenges. But we're, so fortunate to have him in our life, and it's just a bundle of joy. But also struggle with for time. So really, for one thing, really determined to have the most harmonious, happy family. That's really the foundation for everything. Because if I don't have that, then I'm basically just a hypocrite. So, but many things I want to do in my career as well. I really want to be able to grow in my capacity to care for others. I think there's still many things to be desired in the field of mental health that hopefully I can play a role in. But really also, become, someone in my community who people can look up to. I still feel like I'm still struggling to get back in touch with high school and college friends who kind of see me in a different light. So there's so many things I need to do. But I mean, we're living in really troubled times also. So I feel like the best thing I can do is really just to continue this daily work of polishing my life and my character. I'm also busy trying to get out of still student loan debt and all the other things, which I'm finally happy to say that I after almost half a century of life. I'll be 50 next year, believe it or not. So
what? Oh my gosh.
So I'm finally getting to that place where I can really say that I'm starting to achieve some of my dreams, right? And I also, getting back to the beginning of our conversation, I feel like I was expected to do so much as a young person. So some of the things I'm achieving almost feel like, oh, you were supposed to do this. It's kind of maybe my lesser self, but I
don't listen to that, Bora.
I got it. So I got it. That's what I mean by I really got to still there's things in my life that I really need to work on to just be the best person I can be, and really connect with these parts of my past that have been kind of alienated for myself.
And it's so wonderful to I don't know, I guess I feel like it's very Buddhist, right? That okay, I've achieved these things, but now I'm still moving forward. Our life is always okay, what's the next thing that I can really challenge? Because I think even almost thinking back to your growing up and okay, I achieved all these things, and now what? You know, like how do I, and I think a lot of people feel that way, especially like from what I'm kind of hearing, like Gen Z now entering the workforce, like, okay, I achieved all of these things and now I just have this job that like I don't really like. Is this my life? Like,
right.
Is this it? But Buddhism is always about like, let's really find what's going to make us the most happy and let's cultivate this kind of absolute happiness. So if you don't feel fulfilled by your job, okay, like let's find something that is really going to be fulfilling and meaningful for you, or also finding meaning in the difficult jobs too along the way.
When I was in fellowship, I did a Grand Rounds presentation as part of my fellowship training on like the mental health trends in Gen Z, and it was interesting because it was based on the work of a psychologist at UCSD. Her name is Jean Twenge, and she wrote a book about Gen Z. But essentially, kind of interesting and sort of a paradox that Gen Z is the most anxious generation, dealing with unprecedented levels of mental health struggles, but also at the same time, it's the safest generation in history, lower rates of mortality than any other generation, and also the most open-minded generation. In terms of like inclusiveness and really being forward-looking. So all these kind of like paradoxes, but I feel like there's a really deep sense of possibility in this up and coming generation, and possibly why this generation is struggling so much is that they really have a great mission to really change the game for society, right? Like there's so much right now that is to be desired in the way our world is functioning. So I did a fellowship in child and adolescent psychiatry, so I really feel a sense of mission to be able to kind of help this generation, including my son who's now going to be a toddler soon, really recover this sense of deep hopefulness that we've been talking about, right? I think there's sort of a gap in society. Like where are people gonna find that, right? Like we have all the material things we need in this world, but like existentially, there's something that's missing, right?
Yeah. Wow. Just hearing that makes me feel like, there is such a like deep mission and great possibility for this generation, because they see like they're so like face to face with the reality, and which I think of course causes all of this anxiety, but because of that they also have like the answers, somewhere within, and this desire to really like change something. We feel this anxiety because we want it to be different, but we don't know how to do it. And I think for me, that's where Buddhism comes in, like I'm so worried about this, and this, and like, I don't know like what I can possibly do. But Buddhism for me, like, is the thing that's empowering, and I can see how I can really have impact and change in my immediate environment and my relationships with people. And that in turn, I see like how it changes other things, this kind of like ripple effect. So, I don't know. I'm so glad you shared that, because it makes me feel really like,
no generation wants to be labeled, by the way. Like everyone is, that's why I hesitate to talk about that. But I do feel like it does capture something to, and also to put a name to it, like what's happening right now. I mean, it just seeing like unprecedented levels of young people who are self-harming and who dealing with suicidal thoughts and things like this. And in this Buddhism, I feel like we have a great mission to really be able to reach those who are in the midst of this deep kind of turmoil. So yeah, hopefully, I know the work of Buddhability is like definitely reaching this generation. So I really appreciate everything you're doing. So,
oh, it's like no appreciation necessary. This is like just fun and joyful for me. I feel so fortunate to be able to like have this as my job and be able to come to work every day and feel like, wow, I just really love what I do. So you mentioned just briefly like that you have another experience of having your son. So I'd love to hear more about like what that challenge was like and how you ended up having your beautiful son.
It's the most amazing. His name is Mavi, which means blue in Turkish. But we named him like based on like a Buddhist phrase about blue, like the indigo. Like when you dye the indigo, it gets like bluer and bluer, and it represents deepening faith. My wife and I, like for a few years, we were struggling to have our first child, and she had a few miscarriages, and we really felt like, is this even ever going to happen? She got pregnant like a third time. We'd had 2 miscarriages with like the 6th week and the 7th week after seeing the ultrasound. And then the third time, we got to week 16 and we went in to do the ultrasound. And this time, we're like, over the moon, but we get this news that the baby has this, what's called a neural tube defect. And it was like the worst kind of this kind of birth defect, and the baby was expected to be born paralyzed for life, requiring multiple surgeries until age 5, and was going to lead this really difficult life, and it was going to be very difficult for us. We were exploring like stem cell treatments, which would have made my wife have to go undergo all these surgeries. So we were faced with the impossible sort of decision whether to like go forward with this, and I like sought some guidance about it and direction about it from a like Buddhist standpoint, like what's correct or ethical. And we ultimately, my wife, ultimately decided, and I supported her, that she wanted to give birth to this baby prematurely. It's called inducing it. Induction. It's one way of aborting the pregnancy. And so at 22nd week, she gave birth to this baby boy who we held in our arms for 2 hours, and he passed away in our arms. And it was like incredibly, of course, very painful and painful in every way, So, of course, we struggled in our relationship as well at that time, like kind of questioning, like, what are we doing? Did we do something wrong? And blaming each other at certain points. And but we persevered, and it was actually almost exactly a year later in the same hospital, in the same ward, that our baby boy, Mavi, was born. And he is just like so full of joy. If you see pictures, it's just like, really, I feel like he's the answer to our prayers, right? Like, and all of that waiting and that pain and struggle was so worth it. And seeing this like be-beautiful life, come to fruition, right? So, so it was just another reminder to me of, I think we were talking earlier about, what happens when our prayers don't get answered, but that really, if we could persevere, that it gets answered in a way that, even better than we expected, right? So, still many struggles, but, we're able to really appreciate, the wonder of life. And there's, I think, a phrase in the writings of Nichiren Daishonin, which is, again, the person who inscribed the mandala that we chant to, that even one day of life is more precious than all the treasures of the major world system or all the treasures of the universe. So I really feel like that this experience of welcoming our baby has really deepen this appreciation for for the preciousness of even one day of life.
Wow. Sorry. Yeah, thank you for sharing. I think like now as I'm getting older and like have friends trying to conceive, like I think when you're younger you don't really realize how difficult it is. And oftentimes in, I think like our society or our culture, people don't talk about it all that openly or often, like experiencing miscarriages or like any kind of complications. So one, I just want to thank you for like really sharing that. And also, this like deepened appreciation of life is really profound. I was just talking to a couple of friends about, like, in Buddhism we talk about the poetic spirit, and I've been really chanting a lot lately to have that like sense of appreciation for life and the interconnectedness of all life, because it's so easy in like day to day to just be so like just wrapped up in whatever, that like it's in moments of birth and death, I think, that we really can be reminded about like, wow, how profound it is to experience life. And even one day of life is just so precious. So now you have every day with it. Like, wow, this is so precious.
Now new struggles.
Yes. So you have to remind yourself, okay, one day of life is so precious.
Yes. It's amazing. Thank you, Cassidy. This has been really wonderful.
Yes, thank you so much, Bora. Really, I really appreciate you taking the time. I'm excited for this episode to come out.
Oh, no, man, it's been my great honor and pleasure, and hopefully, someone gets something kind of encouragement out of this. We'll see.
They will. I'm not worried.